The unexpected guest Jake walked into his small apartment after another long shift at the space station's maintenance bay. The lights were dimmed, just as he had left them that morning. He'd kicked off his work boots and headed toward the kitchen, planning to heat up some leftover protein bars. That's when he saw her. A small figure sat curled up on his couch, wrapped in what looked like a torn piece of fabric. She couldn't have been more than 12 years old, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Her large, dark eyes tracked his movement as he froze in the doorway. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, his hand instinctively reaching for the emergency comm unit on his belt. The girl flinched at his voice, pressing herself deeper into the corner of the couch. She made a soft chittering sound, almost like a bird, but said nothing else. Jake's mind raced. How had she gotten in? His apartment was 3 levels up in the residential sector of Luna Station. The security systems should have prevented anyone from entering without proper clearance. He approached slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "Hey there, kid. I'm not going to hurt you. Do you understand me?" The girl's eyes widened, and she nodded slightly. Her mouth opened, revealing small, sharp teeth, but still no words came out. Jake's comm unit buzzed. He glanced at the caller ID and saw it was his supervisor, Rick. With one eye still on the girl, he answered. "Jake here. Thompson, you need to get down to the command center. Now." "Actually, Rick, I've got a situation up here. I know about the girl." Rick's voice was tired. "That's why you need to get down here. Bring her with you." Jake stared at the comm unit, then at the girl. "You know about her? Just get down here. And Jake, don't let anyone else see her if you can help it." The line went dead. Jake looked back at the girl, who was watching him with those impossibly large eyes. She seemed to understand that something was happening, even if she couldn't speak. "Okay, kid. Looks like we're going for a walk." Jake grabbed his jacket and approached the couch. "Can you walk?" The girl nodded and stood up. She was tiny, barely reaching Jake's waist, and her movements were graceful despite her apparent exhaustion. She followed him to the door, staying close but not touching. The corridors of Luna Station were mostly empty at this hour. Jake led the girl through the maintenance passages, avoiding the main walkways where other residents might see them. Every few steps, he glanced back to make sure she was still following. When they reached the command center, Rick was waiting outside the main doors. He looked older than Jake had ever seen him, with deep lines around his eyes and his usually neat hair disheveled. "Thank God you're here," Rick said, then looked down at the girl. "How is she?" "She hasn't said anything." "Rick, what's going on? Where did she come from?" Rick glanced around the empty corridor, then gestured for them to follow him into a small briefing room. Once the door sealed behind them, he turned to face Jake. 3 hours ago, a damaged ship drifted into our space. No response to hails, life support failing. When our rescue team got aboard, they found her in what looked like an escape pod that had been jettisoned from another vessel. Jake looked down at the girl, who had taken a seat in one of the chairs. Her feet didn't touch the floor. "Where's the rescue team now?" "That's the problem." Rick rubbed his face. "Everyone who went aboard that ship is in medical isolation. Some kind of contamination, but the doctors can't figure out what. The girl was the only one who seemed unaffected. So why is she in my apartment? Because somehow she got out of the medical bay. Security footage shows her walking through 3 sealed doors like they weren't even there. She went straight to the residential sector, straight to your floor, straight to your door." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "That's impossible." "Yeah. Well, tell that to the security chief. He's been going through the footage for hours, trying to figure out how she did it." Rick looked at the girl, who was listening to their conversation with apparent interest. "The really weird part? When they tried to bring her back to medical, she wouldn't budge. Just sat in your living room like she belonged there. So what now? Rick sighed. Now, apparently, she's your responsibility. Command has decided that since she chose you, you're the one who gets to babysit until they figure out what to do with her. Jake stared at his supervisor. You're kidding. Do I look like I'm kidding? Strange connections. The next morning, Jake woke up to the smell of something. Burning. He bolted upright in his bed, immediately alert. The girl, he still didn't know her name, was supposed to be sleeping on the couch in his living room. He rushed out of his bedroom and found her standing in his kitchen, staring at the smoking remains of what had once been a protein bar. The heating unit was sparking, and the air recycling system was working overtime to clear the smoke. What did you do? Jake asked, not really expecting an answer. The girl looked up at him with those huge dark eyes and pointed at the heating unit. Then she made a series of soft clicking sounds, almost like she was trying to explain. Jake shut off the heating unit and opened the emergency vent to clear the smoke. Okay, new rule. No touching the kitchen equipment. He pulled out a fresh protein bar and showed her how to eat it without heating it. She watched carefully, then took a small bite. Her face scrunched up in disgust, but she kept eating. Yeah, I know. They taste terrible. Jake grabbed his own breakfast and sat down across from her at the small table. So, what's your name? She tilted her head, like she was trying to understand. The question. Name, Jake repeated, pointing to himself. Jake, I'm Jake. Then he pointed to her. You? The girl was quiet for a moment. Then she made a sound that was almost like music, a series of tones that rose and fell. When Jake tried to repeat it, she shook her head and made the sound again, slower this time. I'm never going to be able to say that, Jake said. How about, I call you Luna? Since we're on Luna Station? The girl considered this, then nodded. For the first time since he'd found her, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it lit up her whole face. Jake's comm unit buzzed. It was Rick again. How's your houseguest? Rick asked when Jake answered. She nearly burned down my kitchen, but other than that, fine. Any word from medical about the contamination? That's why I'm calling. The doctors want to run some tests on her. Nothing invasive, just basic scans to make sure she's healthy. Jake looked at Luna, who was listening to the conversation with interest. What kind of tests? Blood work, brain scans, genetic mapping. Standard stuff for first contact situations. First contact? Jake nearly dropped his comm unit. You're telling me she's from a species we've never encountered before? That's what the xenobiology team thinks. Her ship's design doesn't match anything in our databases, and her physiology is completely unknown. Jake felt a strange protective instinct kick in. What if she doesn't want to be tested? Jake, she's a minor of an unknown species. She doesn't get to make that choice? Says who? There was a pause. Says the colonial authority. They're sending a specialist team to handle the situation. Jake looked at Luna, who was now standing next to his chair, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. When? Tomorrow morning. Jake, I need you to bring her to Medical Bay 7 at 0800 hours. And if I refuse? Then security will come and get her. And probably you too. After Jake ended the call, he sat in silence for a moment. Luna was still standing beside him, and he could sense her tension, even though she hadn't said anything. You understand what's happening, don't you? He asked her. Luna nodded slowly. Then she did something that surprised him. She placed her small hand on his arm, and suddenly Jake felt a flood of images and emotions that weren't his own. Fear, loneliness, a ship full of people who looked like her, but older, bright lights and loud noises, the taste of fear in the air. And then running, always running, until she found a place that felt safe. Jake pulled back, gasping. "What was that?" Luna looked at him with those huge eyes, and Jake realized that she had been trying to communicate the only way she knew how. Not with words, but with something deeper. "You're telepathic," he said. It wasn't a question. Luna nodded. "And you chose my apartment because ... double quotes Jake tried to understand what he had felt. Because it felt safe?" Another nod. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars beyond the station. Luna followed him, staying close. When he looked down at her, she was looking up at him with an expression that was unmistakably hopeful. "They want to study you," he said. "The humans. They want to understand what you are." Luna's expression shifted to fear, and Jake felt an echo of it in his own mind. "But I won't let them hurt you," he said, surprised by his own conviction. "I promise." Luna smiled again, and this time Jake felt her relief wash over him like a warm wave. The specialist team. The next morning, Jake woke up to find Luna sitting by the window, staring out at the stars. She had barely slept, and neither had he. Every time he dozed off, he felt her fear creeping into his dreams. "It's time," he said softly. Luna turned to look at him. Her dark eyes were wide with fear, but she nodded. She had been ready for this moment since yesterday. They made their way through the station corridors in silence. Jake could feel Luna's tension growing with each step, and he found himself walking slower, trying to delay the inevitable. When they reached Medical Bay 7, Rick was waiting for them, along with 3 people Jake didn't recognize. 2 humans in military uniforms, and a tall woman in a white lab coat. "Jake, this is Dr. Kate Morris from the Colonial Authority's Xenobiology Division," Rick said, gesturing to the woman in the lab coat. "And these are Agents Brown and Smith from Colonial Security." Dr. Morris stepped forward with a professional smile. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for taking care of our young friend here. We'll take it from here." Jake felt Luna shrink closer to his side. "Her name is Luna," he said. "Luna?" Dr. Morris looked down at the girl with interest. "Did she tell you that?" "I gave her the name. She can't speak, but she can communicate." "Fascinating. How does she communicate?" Jake hesitated. Something about the way the doctor was looking at Luna made him uncomfortable. "She's very expressive." Agent Brown stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, we need to take the subject for testing. Now, please step aside." "The subject?" Jake felt his anger rising. "She's a child, not a lab specimen. She's an unknown alien life form," Agent Smith said. "We need to understand what she is and what she's capable of." Dr. Morris raised her hand. "Gentlemen, please. Mr. Thompson, I understand your concern, but we need to run some tests to ensure Luna's health and safety, as well as the safety of everyone on this station." Jake looked down at Luna, who was pressed against his side, trembling. "What kind of tests?" "Basic medical scans, blood work, cognitive assessments, nothing that will harm her." "And then what?" Dr. Morris exchanged glances with the 2 agents. "And will determine the best course of action for her care." Jake felt Luna's fear spike through their connection. He knelt down to her level. "Luna, these people want to help you. They want to make sure you're healthy." Luna looked up at him with those huge eyes, and Jake felt a wave of images crash over him. Cold metal tables, bright lights, needles, and machines. People in white coats who looked at her like she was a thing instead of a person. "No," Jake said, standing up abruptly. "I'm not letting you do this." Agent Brown stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, you don't have a choice in this matter. Watch." Jake moved to stand between Luna and the agents. "She's terrified. Whatever you're planning to do, she's seen it before." "That's impossible," Dr. Morris said. "She's never been examined by human medical personnel." "Then how do you explain the fact that she's showing me images of medical procedures?" She's telepathic, Dr. Morris. She can share memories. The doctor's eyes lit up with interest. Telepathic? That's extraordinary. We need to study this ability immediately. Jake felt sick. You're not listening to me. She's scared. She's been through something traumatic, and you want to put her through more of the same thing. Mr. Thompson, we're not going to hurt her. Dr. Morris said, we're scientists, not monsters. Tell that to whoever she escaped from. Agent Smith moved to Jake's left. Sir, you need to step aside, now. Jake looked down at Luna, who was looking up at him with complete trust. In that moment, he made a decision that would change everything. No, he said firmly. I'm her guardian. She chose me, and I'm choosing her. You're not taking her anywhere. You have no legal authority, Agent Brown started. Actually, he does. Everyone turned to see Commander Hayes, the station's commanding officer, walking into the medical bay. She was a stern woman in her 50s, with graying hair and sharp eyes. Commander, Dr. Morris said, we have authority from the Colonial Dr. Morris. I've just finished reading the full report on Luna's arrival. According to station protocols, any unaccompanied minor who seeks shelter with a resident becomes that resident's responsibility until proper guardianship can be established. Jake felt a surge of hope. Does that mean... It means that Mr. Thompson has legal guardianship of Luna until the formal hearing can be held. And since she's demonstrated a clear preference for his care, any medical procedures require his consent. Dr. Morris looked frustrated. Commander, this is highly irregular. We have protocols. So do we, Doctor. And on my station, we follow them. Commander Hayes looked at Jake. Mr. Thompson, do you consent to basic medical examination for Luna? Jake looked down at Luna, who was still pressed against his side. Only if I can stay with her, and only if she agrees. Luna looked up at him and nodded slowly. Very well, Commander Hayes said. Dr. Morris, you may proceed with basic scans only. No invasive procedures without a court order. Discoveries in bonds the medical examination took 3 hours. Jake stayed by Luna's side the entire time, holding her hand as Dr. Morris ran various scans and tests. Luna remained calm as long as Jake was there, but whenever he moved more than a few steps away, she would become agitated. Her physiology is remarkable, Dr. Morris said as she reviewed the results. Her bone density is about 60% of human normal, but her muscle fibers are incredibly efficient. She's built for agility rather than strength. What about her age? Jake asked. Based on her physical development, I'd estimate she's equivalent to a human 12 or 13-year-old. But her brain scans show activity patterns I've never seen before. The telepathic abilities you mentioned seem to be concentrated in areas that are completely underdeveloped in humans. Jake felt Luna squeeze his hand. Through their connection, he sensed her growing fatigue. Are we done here? For now, yes. But Mr. Thompson, I need to ask you something. During the scans, Luna's brain activity spiked whenever you made physical contact. Are you experiencing any unusual sensations when you touch her? Jake hesitated. He had been experiencing more than just Luna's emotions. Over the past day, he had started to pick up fragments of her thoughts, glimpses of her memories. It was like learning a new language, except the words were feelings and images. Sometimes, he admitted, this is unprecedented. As far as we know, humans don't have telepathic abilities. The fact that you're able to communicate with her this way suggests something extraordinary is happening. Agent Brown, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. What kind of extraordinary? Dr. Morris looked at her scanner readings. I'm not sure, but I'd like to continue monitoring both of them. Mr. Thompson, would you be willing to participate in some additional tests? Jake looked at Luna, who was leaning against him, exhausted from the morning's procedures. Not today. She needs rest. Of course. But this connection you two have formed could be incredibly important for establishing communication protocols with her species. Her species? Jake asked. Do you know where she's from? Not yet. But based on her ship's trajectory and the damage patterns, she came from somewhere in the outer rim. Her vessel was badly damaged, probably by weapons fire. Jake felt Luna's fear spike again. She was running from something. That's what we suspect. The question is what, and whether it's still out there. Over the next few days, Jake and Luna settled into a routine. Jake would work his maintenance shifts while Luna stayed in his apartment, and in the evenings, they would explore the station together. Luna was fascinated by human technology, especially the hydroponics bays where food was grown. It was during one of these evening walks that Jake made a discovery that changed everything. They were in the observation deck, looking out at the stars, when Luna suddenly became very still. She was staring at a particular section of space, and Jake could feel her tension through their connection. What is it? He asked. Luna pointed at a distant star cluster. Then she placed her hand on his arm, and Jake was flooded with images. A beautiful blue-green world orbiting a binary star system. Cities that seemed to grow from the ground itself, with spires that twisted toward the sky like living things. People who looked like Luna, but adults, going about their daily lives. And then the images turned dark. Ships descending from the sky. Weapons fire. Buildings collapsing. People running, screaming, dying. Your home world, Jake said softly. Luna nodded, tears streaming down her face. Through their connection, Jake felt her grief and loss as if it were his own. Who did this? He asked. More images. Tall figures in dark armor. Ships with jagged designs. A symbol that looked like a twisted cross. The Devourers, Jake whispered. He had heard the name before in intelligence briefings. A hostile alien race that had been attacking colonies in the outer rim. Luna looked at him with surprise. She had heard the name too. They destroyed your world, Jake said. You escaped? Luna nodded. Then she showed him more images. A ship full of survivors, including many children. A desperate journey through space, and then an attack. The ship being boarded. People being taken away. You were on an escape ship, Jake said. They caught you. Luna's next images were harder to interpret. A laboratory. Cages. Other children who looked like her, but they were different somehow. Changed. They were experimenting on you, Jake said, his anger rising. On all of you, Luna nodded. Then she showed him how she had escaped, using her telepathic abilities to confuse the guards, slipping through the ship's ventilation system, reaching the escape pods. You're the only one who got away, Jake said. Luna looked at him with those huge dark eyes, and Jake felt the weight of her survivor's guilt. Hey, he said, kneeling down to her level. You did what you had to do. You survived. That's what matters.